Hey guys, I thought I would sit down today and go over the Ancestry DNA basics. Show you a little bit about what you get when you test, the information you're given, and how to best use it to get started. Regardless if you know your entire family history, both sides, or you're an adoptee, you can benefit from the information that I'm about to give you. So just to back up, you spit in a tube, you follow the instructions, you register, you send it in, and you wait. While you wait, it's a good idea to start building a tree if you can. If you know your mother and father, start building trees for them. If you only know one parent, start building a tree for them. If you don't know anyone, then unfortunately, being a true adoptee, you're just going to need to wait until your test results come back, and then you can start grouping information. When you get your results, and by the way, I've printed stuff and blacked stuff out trying to protect the privacy of my matches. So hopefully this is going to make sense. But when you first test and you get your results, you're going to land on a page, something like this. It's going to have your ethnicity down one side, your matches, your common matches here in the center. It's going to tell you if you have shared ancestry hints, and that's a little green leafy guy. That's important if you do have a tree. Those links are going, and I'm going to show you specifically what that looks like later, but those are people whose tree matches yours and your DNA matches. So you can go in and see specifically how you connect to those people. If you don't have a tree, of course, you're not going to have any. If you have a very small tree, there's not a lot of information, or only one side of your family, you may have little to no of those numbers, just depending on who has tested and who hasn't. Under that, it says starred matches. Starred matches is going to mean something later when you start breaking down categories and putting people in groups and searching certain groups for information. You can star and unstar as many as you want, and that is something that is very useful when searching. The last one will say a number, fourth cousins closer or closer. So I currently have 1,021 fourth cousins or closer. Now that's not all the matches I have on Ancestry. I think the last time I actually added them up, it was over 20,000, which is absurd. But that goes all the way out to distant cousin with, we're sharing teeny tiny amounts of DNA. It would be, in most cases, very difficult to actually map out exactly how we're related. This is going to be 8th or 10th cousin. Anything past 4 can become difficult in a lot of families. I have past 4th cousin matches that I can prove with tree and DNA, but it took me a long time to build out my trees far enough to match with those people. So most people just concentrate on those 4th cousins or closer. Some people don't even look at their 4th cousins because it's a lot of work to make all of that information line up. 3rd cousins or closer is much easier to manage, understand, prove connection, so on and so forth. The last section over here, you may not get this right away when you test. It is DNA circles. I don't get them. I don't use them. They're kind of cool. So they start to compile people that match each other and to all go to a specific shared relative. And I'm sure they're useful. I just haven't had the time or the care to put a lot of energy there because I was using other information that I've gathered to find my father. Now that I think I've found him, I'm probably going to spend a little more time looking at those and seeing if there's any more useful information in there for me. So that's your first page, and of course everybody wants to look at ethnicity first. It's understandable, it's a really cool part of it, but you need to understand these are estimates based on other people who have tested and where they've decided, okay, these specific people from these specific regions share this specific ancestry. So we're going to assume that in the last 2,000 years, someone, you know, your ancestor is carrying DNA from this specific place and it has traveled down to you. It's hard to understand. Most people think that my mom was 50% Irish, my father was 50% German, I have 25% of each of those things. That is not how this works. Your parents each have a deck of cards of 32 that they were given, half from their mom and half from their dad. And they take that and they mix it all up, and you randomly are dealt half of those. So even if your mom was 50% one thing and 50% the other, she could literally give you just 50%, just one of the things she is. That's probably very unlikely, but it is. That's why siblings are not genetically the same like twins, because every time a person has a child, those deck of cards are reshuffled and given to that child. So if that didn't happen, we would all siblings would be like identical twins, and we are not. We can be vastly different with our percentages of what we get and how we get them. So to think, oh, my mom was German and my dad was Irish, I should be 50% of each, it's not going to happen. And you also have to remember that these tests show ancient DNA. This has been passed down. Just because your parent says, my mother was born in Ireland and we are Irish. Where was her parents born, and her grandparents and her great-grandparents? Where were they 7 generations before that? People people migrate. Things happened. There were wars. There were people moving around much differently than how we move around now. And through DNA matching, they're figuring a lot of that out and tracing stuff and saying, okay, this group of people have done this and so on. And it's amazing what they're learning, but these are estimates and they're based on what information has been gathered and proved true so far. And the more they get, the more technology that goes into this, the more all of that, the more specific they'll become over time. There's people who say that their results have changed if they tested a few years ago compared to now. I'm not surprised. 6 million people have now tested. That's a lot of information for them. So anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. So when you're on this screen, your main screen, and you go into the ethnicity area, it'll bring up something like this. It gives you all your percentages and information, and it gives you a map, and it kind of circles the areas in which your information lies. You can also open up each one of these tabs, and it gives you even more information. It tells you the areas those people were found in historical facts. And let's say, like me, I test at 32% Scandinavian. I don't know if you all would be able to, there we go. So I have 32% Scandinavian. If you open that up, it's going to tell you about the Vikings. It's going to tell you different places they lived and had communities and information about them. It's going to also tell you about people that weren't Vikings but are Scandinavian. So it's going to talk to a lot of information and historical information about those areas. So as we see, I am 99% European. I don't think that's a big shocker to anyone. I come in at 32% Scandinavian, 26% Ireland, 15% Western European, 14% Great Britain, 8% Italy and Greece, and then you get down to a low confidence area. That means you have very small percentage. They're still building that. They assume that those things are a part of me, but they can't say with great confidence that it is. So I have 4% on Iberian Peninsula, and my smallest is less than 1% West Asian, centering Middle East, which isn't uncommon. Almost everyone I think everyone to some extent is going to have 1% or less of either African, Middle or Asia, typically Middle East-ish area. And a lot of people have both of those at less than 1%. So this kind of gives you, through the years, these are the pieces of DNA that have traveled to my generation that they can confidently tell me that people that share this DNA lived in this, came from this area of the world. So there's a lot of information in there. There's also more information on genetic communities in there, which mine is early settlers of the Southeast. I'm a Yankee girl. To think that my roots go back to Southern roots is kind of crazy, because I've never associated myself with being a Southerner, and here I live in the South and find out my DNA says otherwise. I haven't found those connections yet, but I still have a far way to go with that, and it may very well be on my paternal side, which I'm still obviously have no confirmation and stuff yet. So still working on that stuff a little bit to see where it leads me. Now, the next area you're going to go into is your view match area, view all DNA matches. And it's going to come up with a list, and I don't have a printout of this specific part because it's going to be different for everyone. There's going to be groups in this list. I believe there's 50 names per page. And the highest group would be parent-child relationship, because that's the most DNA you could share with another person, unless you're an identical twin. So, which I think would probably be closest, I don't know, science and stuff, whatever. So, if there was a parent-child relationship, if your child also tested or your parent also tested, or like in my case, hopefully one of these will show up soon, it will say parent-child relationship. It's pretty straightforward, and there'll be a view match area that you can open, and it brings you into their information. Now, someone's information, I blocked a lot of this out, but it's going to come up like this. It's going to have their name. It's going to say how long they've been a member, when the last time they logged in is, which can be useful. And then it's going to give predicted relationship. So if you have a parent-child relationship, it's going to tell you that. There's also this little eye icon here. I know it's kind of hard to see. It gives the amount of shared DNA. Now, everything else with ethnicity and relationship is a guess based on these numbers. So this specific example, I share 225 centimorgans across 14 DNA segments. There is a little button that says, what does this mean? That is important, because not every guesstimate is right. A half sibling is not going to show up as a full sibling. It is going to show up in close family. Those centimorgans, that stuff is very important in determining relationship with someone. There are charts. I'm going to try to link some stuff in the bottom bar that lets people know, like, there's charts that tell you specifically centimorgans matched at this number will mean this, 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 or this. It's hard to memorize it all. I constantly look at the chart because there's so many options and there's so many numbers, and it can be very overwhelming. And that was one of the hardest parts for me to understand. And the chart, I wouldn't have made progress without these charts, and understanding that the prediction on Ancestry as second cousin or third cousin is not specific. You have to dig deeper than that. A lot of I have at least 2, if not 3 third cousin matches that are not third cousins. They're second cousins one time removed. If you don't understand the removed stuff, I didn't either, and I still struggle with it. I have to really concentrate. It's not to the point where it's just instantaneously in my head. I mean, a few of them are, but you get out past third cousin and I don't know. So I have to look at my chart, and the charts are so helpful. So this area, I would say, get to know this area, pay attention to it. Under that, if you share a tree with someone and you have one of those little green leafy hint things like I showed you, you will get a graph like this. So this is me, my mom, my grandmother, my great-grandfather, his son, and my match. I know this match personally. I grew up with her as a part of my life. So I know that this relationship is correct. So it's really cool if you have built a tree, and if your matches have built a tree, it makes it very easy to understand this. So those are kind of the main parts you need to pay attention to when you're starting. Look for that stuff, start to understand it. Remember to look at how much shared DNA you have, cross-reference with charts to see other possibilities. And there's a lot of them, and don't feel overwhelmed that you just don't get it, because I'm telling you, it took me a long time, and sometimes I have to like pull myself back, look at the charts, rethink everything I've done, and try to figure out if I made a mistake somewhere, because it can be very overwhelming. Some people get this stuff. I had to go to extremes in the beginning to really make it make sense to me and teach myself how to do this, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. Let me see if I have it on any of these. I don't think I printed one out. Unfortunately, this little box is over it, but when you're in your match, if you don't have this box clicked, there are 3 options right here. The very first one is will show you their tree and show you lower down shared surnames and things like that. The second one is called shared matches. Those are other people who have tested with DNA, and the 3 of you, it's like a triangulation of you 3. So me and Bob, let's say this is Bob, I click here, I can see Ann, Julie, Sherry, whatever, that match Bob and match me. So that information in there is the most important information if you're starting out, because grouping your matches is the way you find people, at least in my opinion. The last one is mapping locations. I don't really use that, but it's kind of cool to look at to see where your ancestors lived based on the trees you've built. I haven't found it that useful in my specific search. So when you go into shared matches, as I said, it's going to show you everyone that you match with that person. So what I started doing, if you have any tree information or people you personally know your relationship 100% and your DNA proves that those people are going to be extremely helpful in you segregating out your matches. If you're an adoptee, you can still 100% do this. You just have to label people in a whatever way works for you. You could do it A, B, C, D, E, F, G, to note the connection between those people. There's also a place, and I say note because you can, there's a place for notes on every single person. I have it blacked out here because I had personal information about this person in there. With my second cousin matches, I had 2 on my mom's side, and I have 1 on my mom's dad's side. So I knew them, I knew how I related to them, so on and so forth. So I would open that shared ancestor area and note everywhere there was a little notepad, I would note that that person was let's say my mom's side was Smith. Every one of those people connect to Smith because that's how me and the first match. So me and the cousin, I have confirmed relationship with you. I know who you are. I know, I can see how our trees match. So I know that everyone that matches you and I. Now, if you have intermarriages in your family, it can be much more complicated than that, but this is where I started. So I know to look in this family grouping to see how I'm connected to each one of these people. It doesn't matter if they have a tree. It doesn't matter if they have a name. It doesn't matter if they have anything at all. I put how I think we connect. So if they match my cousin on my mom's side, I'm going to put that surname in the notes. If they match my cousin on my mom's dad's side, I'm going to put the other surname that all of these people match. I took it one step further because I'm crazy, and I got like 200 Post-it notes and a big blank wall in my dining room, and I started writing down everyone's name, and I would mark on the Post-it note, like I had created like a ledger for myself. So green meant they had a tree, blue meant they were second cousin, so on and so forth. And I started sticking them to the wall and using my shared match information and really looking and making sure I'm putting each group of people together. If I find one person in this group, and there could be 20 names on that wall, but one of them I can prove a connection to my mom's side in some way, shape, or form, I noted that. Okay, all of these are not the people I'm looking for right now. I know who's my mom's parents and I know that. I'm looking for my bio father's information. So I need the groups of people that I cannot match to my mom in any way, shape, or form. You can do that all on the computer. There's Excel spreadsheets. There's so many methodologies to deal with this information, but visibly being able to see it on my wall and make these groups and start, okay, this person's connected to this person. And within that held one of my biggest ways to move forward. I had this huge group on this side and this huge group on this side. They all matched each other, but none of them matched each other at all. So I had these two huge groups and I was related to both of them. So I'm like, okay, something's here. So somewhere where this group met this group is probably what made me, because they were huge groups of people with no common ancestors to themselves. I was the only one that I could find that was connected to both of them. So I'm like, okay, where these two families intersect, I'm going to find really important information. And I did, thanks to the help of a cousin who finally responded to an email after 3+ months. He gave me his name. I'll get more into mirror trees in another video because this video is already 20 minutes long. So with the information he gave me, I was able to connect with other information I had found in that tree, and I found where they married each other. I found where the Smith married the Johnson, and I have to fall underneath that. So grouping my matches was the most important thing I did. Now, searching and finding information in order to do that was where the hard work laid, but I wouldn't have been able to know where to look if I didn't group my matches. So that's what I'm trying to tell you is the most important thing. If it's important to you to find proof to specific family, if you're looking for a father, if you're looking for a cousin, if there was somebody in the family put up for adoption, start looking and grouping, because the more you group and the more you make sense of how each of these groups come in to make you, the more you're able to know where and how to focus your attention and energy. So that's the number one lesson. Look through your ethnicity, have a lot of fun with that. It's cool. It's interesting to learn. When you move on to your matches, simply start grouping them in any way you can. That's where you can learn so much. So if you're an adoptee and you do it on the wall like I did, like I said, you can simply label them A, B, C, D. If you do have family information, at least one parent, you can start labeling. Even if you don't know the last name, you can say maternal, paternal. Like, you can make up some kind of word, whatever you want to use, that you know each of these people fit in these groups. So let's say you get a new match. I get a new second cousin match. I pull it up, I hit shared matches, and I see notes all the way down through on all of our matches that say Smith, Smith, Smith. That person's a Smith. I don't even have to look. It doesn't, you know, if they have a tree and if we have a close relationship, then they may be very vital to solving a problem. Or I can say, okay, that's not the tree I need information on for right now. I'm just going to label them as Smith as well and move on. So it really helps you use your time wisely. It helps you make sense of all of these people. When you're looking at thousands of names, it's overwhelming. Now I have a cousin who I'm helping her with her account. She only has 200 and some fourth cousins or closer, where I have over 1,000. Everybody's information is going to be different, and how you can filter that information is going to be a little bit different based on that person's knowledge of their family. But that's what you have to do. To really get started and make any sense of what you're looking at, you have to start doing that. So that's my best piece of advice. I'm anxious and excited, or whatever words you you want to use, to put more information out there. There are a ton of Facebook groups. There are people that know way more than I will ever know. There's books, there's so much. But I just wanted to kind of break it down from this, I'm not a moron, but this isn't what I do. Break it down from my standpoint, how it made sense to me, the tips and tricks I was given by other people that actually worked and made sense to me without spending another 2 years learning how to triangulate DNA and no. So this is what I did. I hope it works for you. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, if I missed anything, because this wasn't rehearsed at all, I just threw it together. Actually, I gotta run out of the door and go to work now. So hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully it can be useful to you. If I find when I rewatch this video that it's an absolute mess, then I will make another video and explain more. But hopefully this can get you started to making sense of your DNA matches. And no. All right. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Remember to take good care of yourself, and I will hopefully see you soon. Bye.